here, and certainly with the Orioles having played 44 games at home, and what a hell of a clip at 31-13. Now take it to the road. They'll be West Coast bound the next couple of weeks. Meanwhile, the NFL on a little bit of a shutdown, and the WNST tech service is there. But if you're getting text about the Ravens, it's probably not good news in the National Football League this time of the year. This guy covers all the comings and goings of the NFL offseason, as well as the NBA for Larry Brown Sports and LB Sports. He is one of our defending champions. He is up in Boston where they have second place baseball right now. Steve Del Vecchio is Steve Del Sports out on Twitter. What's going on, man? Happy summer to you up there. And how's it feel to be chasing the Orioles for a change? Feels good where we are, man.
Happy summer to you too. Yeah, I mean it's we're not too panicked right now. The expectations coming into this season were actually extremely low. So second place is, I'll take it right now. I mean, I kind of expected this team to be, kind of as crappy as they were the last 2 years. So, I mean, they're slumping a little bit lately. It's obviously starting to catch up to them. But, for now, I'm actually pretty happy with the position they're in, to be honest.
Dude, they came in here, 4 weeks ago? They were hitting 296 as a team. Dude, you got nothing to do but slump when you're hitting 296 as a team, right? I mean, there's nowhere to go. There's no air at the top of that bubble. But I think for the pitching, and really that's the big story for the Orioles right now, who send Jimenez and Gallardo to the hill 2 out of every 5 days. And you talk about the box of chocolates. The bottom end of the Red Sox rotation is also a mess, and you're kind of like getting by with a knuckleballer, which is always feels like a little bit of borrowed time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the same as everybody, on the hitting. Everybody was mashing the ball together, and you knew that, some of them were going to slump together and it would become a problem. The same is true of Stephen Wright. I mean, he's not going to win the Cy Young. He's not going to win 25 games. He's not going to go 25-3. So, he's going to come back down to earth eventually, and, you kind of just hope that David Price and someone else will step up for the time being. But, yeah, I mean, their pitching's been a problem all year. I said right from day one, watching them win, watching them mash the ball, it was like they were spotting the other team a 3-run lead in the first inning every game, and now they're still doing it, but they're just not hitting enough to cover that up. So it was, the blemish has been pitching all year, and they were hitting the ball hard enough to cover it. And now they're just not, and it's showing right away. I mean, when they can't score runs, they can't win because they don't have the pitching and the bullpen hasn't been consistent. And that's just, that's their story right now.
Well, I'll tell you what, the Orioles story has been just hitting the baseball. It's been a great summer for that, and as the air sort of thins out a little bit, we get the heat waves coming. Maybe we'll see even more fireworks from the Mark Trumbos and the Chris Davises, even Adam Jones stroking the ball right now. Steve, you're out there doing a lot of NBA stuff at Larry Brown, and obviously as exciting a finale as you could possibly hope for. The storybook story for Cleveland, and you being a Boston guy, you've had a few parades up there. You know how good that makes you feel. Then the offseason hits, and if you're down here in this region or even up in Boston where you say, well, Celtics have some nice pieces and they got a nice draft pick, and, they're sort of a player or two away, and they might have a little room now with the cap moving around and more money for the NBA. But looking at the Wizards and looking at the Cavaliers and even Oklahoma City with Durant, as well as San Antonio, the rest of these teams feel like they're so far away. I know as a Wizards fan, I'm like, Durant, okay, maybe that puts him into a conversation if they were to have gone in that direction. We've only talked about it for 3 years. But Kevin Durant's not coming and playing for the Wizards right now.
No, I mean, the only draw there is just that, he grew up in that area. So I think it's kind of the natural storyline. But, I don't really know how much there is to it. I'm sure he'll probably at some point do them the courtesy of giving them an interview just because, like I said, it's his hometown team, and he's hinted about, the D.C. area and how he likes it before. But probably, I mean, what you said, I'm sure, is exactly the same way he feels. They're not all that close. I mean, the bottom line with him is he's not itching to get out of Oklahoma City. He's just itching to win a championship. So
he's in a place where he's close and maybe and sort of kind of, and it's sort of comfortable. But, the only place to go from there would be Golden State or Cleveland, right? That's the only other place you go and say, well, I'll be playing in late May next year probably if I go there. I don't think there's anywhere else you can go and say for sure the impact is going to be felt, and certainly not with the Lakers or the Knicks or some of these other teams that are dreaming and showing off their laundry and showing off the same American money every other team has at this point. There's no real advantage for any of those places.
No, absolutely. And it would have to be, for him to leave Oklahoma City, he would have to go to a team that's an absolute slam dunk, automatic NBA Finals team, because, Oklahoma City was right there, if not for their meltdown against the Warriors. So, I mean, they were right there. I mean, the only reason you could see him going to an Eastern Conference team possibly would be just because, the road is so much easier. I mean, you'd only have to get by the Cavs, where in the Western Conference, obviously the Warriors are the cream of the crop, but the Spurs are always going to be there. It's just a tougher road. But personally, I don't think he's going to leave Oklahoma City. There's really no risk involved with signing, one of those 2-year deals with the opt-out after the first, like LeBron did. The salary cap's going to go up huge. He's not as old as LeBron. He can afford to take one more season and see what happens with Oklahoma City. And obviously the best thing for his career would be to bring a title where it all began. So he might as well give that one more run. If it doesn't work out, opt out, and you're going to sign a huge contract again next offseason with whoever you want. So, I mean, I think that he'll stay at least, for one more season.
Steve Del Vecchio covering all things sports as the assistant editor at Larry Brown Sports, and that's LB Sports out on Twitter. You can follow Steve at Steve Del Sports out on Twitter, and he has a lot of beautiful NFL logos. One of the things that really separates the NFL and the NBA for me, and as a kid, I loved the NBA and that whole Bird, Magic, Dr. J era, and I loved the Bullets back then with Wes Unseld and whatnot. In the modern era, and this has really nothing to do with me being a Wizards fan or a Wizards hater or a supporter or not, and it's not even about the Wizards, maybe more about the NBA. I've drifted from the league over the last couple of decades, even in all the years I've been on radio, maybe a little bit more toward college basketball with the Terps being a powerhouse back at the turn of the century. You wake up and you see the NFL offseason where a 5-11 Ravens team can go out, make a couple of acquisitions, draft, maybe get some guys on the field and say they can win a championship next year. I look at all these logos on your Twitter page, Steve. I mean, there might only be 6 or 8 teams in the NFL that you could really make a case that they can't win the championship next year, whereas in a place like the NBA, you can't go past the top 4. Even if Durant signed in Boston or Miami or Atlanta or Toronto or someplace where they're considered to be close and say they've really improved their lot and that they're a lock for being a late May team or a Final Four team. And the NBA is such a chalk league in that way. I find it fascinating that people stay on the carousel with the NBA in the offseason because all the rest of this feels like they're moving the chairs around on, whatever, 550 kind of team in the NBA, moving these players with max contracts. There's nothing that's going to happen in this offseason that's going to trump LeBron and the Warriors next year being the 2 best teams and everybody else chasing at this point.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, like we talked about with Durant, he's either going to probably stay in Oklahoma City or, sign with the Warriors. I mean, obviously, so that would remain the same regardless of what he does. Still, the Warriors have the edge over Oklahoma City with or without Durant. The only thing that could possibly change it is something completely out of left field where, say Durant goes to the Spurs or something. I mean, it would have to be a completely unexpected move or if he goes to the Celtics. I mean, the only hope the Celtics have is that they're the only team currently who can, without shuffling much around, they can take on 2 max contracts. So if Kevin Durant wants to play with a particular player, whether it be Al Horford or Hassan Whiteside or somebody, I mean, if he for some reason wanted to play with one of those guys, the Celtics could make it happen for him. But either way, I mean, that doesn't automatically make them, a favorite over the Cavs if Durant even signed there. So yeah, like you said, I mean, obviously it's just, I think it's just the game itself. It's so superstar oriented, whereas, football, it's obviously quarterback oriented, but still, there's 2 different sides of the ball. There's offense and defense.
But there's also hope for the fans. You know what I mean? If you're a Detroit
Absolutely.
Lions fan right now, you really can conjure up some image where they win 11 games and run the ball a little bit, and next thing you know, they're in a championship. You can make that case for any team. In the NBA, there's 25 places where you can't make any case at all, even if your team's pretty good, like in Indiana or in Atlanta or someplace like that.
Right. It's amazing. I mean, there's 82 games, and somehow, these teams seem to, finish with almost identical records every single year. The crummy teams, it's either, they won 22 games last year. Oh, they won 24 games next year. There's just not much change, and it's just so hard to when you talk about a rebuilding project in the NBA, it can just take so long. Fan bases just have to be patient and hope that, their teams hit on, draft picks, not for 1 year, for 3 or 4 years sometimes. And that's where the tanking issue comes in, which is a separate thing altogether. And I prefer the NFL product for that reason. There's just so much variation from year to year. I mean, how many times at least one team every single year goes from last place in their division to first and vice versa. And it's almost a guarantee that that's going to happen again this year, especially with teams like your Ravens with finishing 5-11 last year. That's not going to happen. Cowboys are on the same boat. So, there's definitely a way bigger element of mystery there.
I think also in the NBA, the telescope becomes the microscope for guys like Love, once you really sit and watch them play for 7 games, as well as Harrison Barnes. And then these guys hit the market as, well, they're Cavs and they're world champions and they're the Warriors and they've got a ring. Well, what are they worth to you? Are they really worth $25 million to you?
Yeah, to me personally, I wouldn't pay either one of them $25 million. I mean, Harrison Barnes kind of disappeared in the playoffs. I mean, it's crazy right now the amount, to me, the players that are being talked about as far as max contracts are concerned. I mean, I know how that's how the NBA works because they do have the contract cap and there's X amount you can play, but it's just insane that a guy like Harrison Barnes could be talking about signing a max contract where that's the same for Kevin Durant. And I mean, think about the difference in those two types of players, and he's seeking similar pay. So it's just crazy. I mean, that just goes to show you how it's such a talent-starved league too. I mean, there's so many missed draft picks. There's 2 rounds of the NBA draft, and from each draft, how many players are there that?
Well, the guys don't even pan out on the team that drafts them. I mean,
right,
if they're going to, if at some point Diamond Stone turns into the next coming of Shaquille O'Neal or something, it's not going to be where he was drafted. That's for sure.
Right, absolutely, and that's another difference with the NFL. There's just such a huge talent pool in college football. I mean, that 3rd round picks and 4th round picks are valuable, whereas in the NBA, even a late 1st round pick, middle to late 1st round pick sometimes has absolutely no value. I mean, the Celtics, we go back to them. They had a bunch of draft picks. They had the 3rd overall pick and like the 16th pick, and they couldn't swing a deal. They tried. I mean, imagine it's the only sport where the 3rd overall pick, I mean, maybe hockey, but the only sport where the 3rd overall pick could be, nobody wanted it because it was considered a 2-player draft. And I mean, there's 32 teams in the league, 2 players, and nobody wanted the number 3 pick. So that tells you all you need to know about, how starved for talent they are.
Yeah, it's a pretty pathetic, a word on the league where you're like, it's a 2-player draft. Really? I mean, that's all you're going to get? And then the Terps, I mean, what a weird week it's been for them. They get decimated by the draft. Carter's agents on the phone telling teams not to draft him, that, he'd rather go undrafted, which the whole reason he came out was to get drafted. So,
right.
And that's just not a Maryland issue. I think that's a you-to-man issue throughout the NBA and throughout college basketball, telling these kids that they, need to come from Wisconsin off the farm to play 8 weeks of basketball, and they're, going to be a lottery pick. Well, it didn't turn out to be that way, certainly not for the Terps.
Right, yeah, and they'll tell them anything they want to hear to get them there, and it's a jump issue, too, how difficult it is to jump from one level to the other. I mean, it's difficult in college football, but, the level of play at the Alabamas and the big schools like that is just so much higher than the level of play at, say, Kentucky versus the level of play of any NBA team. I mean, that's the favorite argument every year is, could Kentucky beat such and such garbage NBA team? And no, it's not going to happen. Any NBA team would smoke Kentucky, and it's not a matter of talent. It's just, I think it's just preparation and just 2 completely different sports almost. And like you said, with this draft being a 2-player draft, it's not a 2-player draft. It's just a 2-player draft in terms of, Ben Simmons seems to be the can't-miss physical prospect.
Even though he can't shoot.
Right, even though he can't shoot, but NBA teams salivate over that. But you look at guys like Jimmy Butler, and there's a million other examples. I mean, I wonder how many quote-unquote player draft they would have said Jimmy Butler's draft was. You just don't know where that guy's going to come from, and it could come from anywhere, but there's just, there's no way to tell.
Steve Del Vecchio covers all things sports. Tell me about what Larry Brown Sports does at LB Sports Ad on Twitter. I know you're the big editor, Poobah there, one of our defending champions.
Thank you. Yeah, we just try to, we try to keep up with all the, the regular breaking news type stuff. And for our gals, I should say, who come to our site every day. But mostly we're just looking to, pump out viral content and give you the type of stuff that you can't find maybe at Fox Sports or ESPN, or you're not going to see on TV. Just, stuff that's kind of outside the box that people want to see, stuff that people will be inclined to, share on Facebook or Twitter and, ask their buddies at a bar, oh, did you see such and such happen? I mean, stuff that you're not going to go to Adam Schefter's Twitter account and find out. I mean, that's not really our niche. We're just kind of looking for, that different type of stuff that gets people talking and kind of laughing, I guess.
Well, I'll call and pick on you later in the summer when the Orioles and the Red Sox really get going. But it should be a good summer. And, I always say, as long as it's quiet on the football front for a couple of weeks, it's all good. Because once that thing gets ramped up in 4 weeks, the football season gets going, and then away we go, man.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Steve, great having you on, man. Enjoy the summer up there.
Yeah, you too. Thank you.
Have some lobster and chowder for me up there in Boston. I'm not getting there this summer. But my wife and I were talking about getting back to Fenway Park. We need to do that. Steve Del Vecchio can be followed at Steve Del Sports out on Twitter. You can find me, Nasty, at WNST.net 24 hours a day from wherever you are. Also in the Buy a Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day. For anything you might miss, if you missed the beginning of one of the segments here, it's all there, as well as the Listen Live button, all brought to you by BuyAToyota.com. Our morning newspaper serves up to you at 7 a.m. to your email inbox each and every morning. It comes directly. It's free. It's easy. It's one sign up, and it's all powered by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life. It is bikini season. Take advantage of that. Last but not least, breaking news happens first on the WNST tech service. Little phone goes off. Orioles, some comings, some goings. Probably quiet on the Ravens front. Except for bad news. We don't need any of that in June, I'll tell you that. And that's all powered up by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis is here on Thursday from 3 until 5, driving you home, and Luke and I will join him. And, of course, the Orioles are out on the West Coast all week, and we will be tweeting and Facebooking and opining as we do out on social media. The big WNST Rock Week is July 11th. I've been editing all of my 25-year-plus interviews now with various Rock and Roll Hall of Famers. I think there's 23 Rock and Roll Hall of Famers now. There was a Rick Nielsen piece, or maybe he's 24 because Cheap Trick just went into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. But I've got a lot of great stuff, never before aired, never before listened to by me or by anyone else. It's going to debut on July 11th here. It is WNST Rock Week. That is the hashtag on that. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports. Into the night on the West Coast as the first place Baltimore Orioles head out to San Diego for a quick stay on a Tuesday and Wednesday, and then on to Seattle and on to Los Angeles, in my favorite place at Dodger Stadium. In the meantime, there's plenty of other stuff going on. My wife was very glued to the gymnastics over the weekend out in St. Louis, and all things Rio. I was watching a lot of Copa soccer and Messi and the big disappointment for the Argentinians. This guy is monitoring all things tennis, and I'm